Welcome to our podcast. Let's Make History Together is dedicated to Springfield, Ohio. We are a coalition of community members who are actively shaping a new, bold vision for our city. We are doing so through an initiative called Springfield 2051.
Welcome to the Let's Make History Together podcast series, where we're exploring ideas and strategies that will shape the future of our community over the next generation. I'm Kevin Rose, community historian with the Turner Foundation and also the director of the Hartman Rock Garden. And today we're focusing on one of those 7 pillars that this community has identified after numerous listening sessions and community feedback, and that is enhancing downtowns and corridors. So I feel like I have 2 people today that are perfect at helping have this conversation, great perspectives on this. One is Ash Ahmed, who's a cardiology practitioner here in Springfield and also a key member of our steering committee. And David Beurle, who's the founder of Future IQ and the lead consultant that's been helping us through this process over the last 6 months or so. So I'm going to start by turning it to Ash, because I know, Ash, you were born and raised here in Springfield. You went away to college and medical school, and you decided to come back to Springfield as your base of operations, the place to raise your family. What led you to that decision? Can you talk to us a little bit about that decision? What led you back to Springfield?
Yeah. Again, my name's Ash, and family business. I'll get right to it. So my dad, I was actually born in Brooklyn.
Oh.
Came to Springfield in 1973 when I was 3 years old. Dad, Stan Nettleman, was the chief of staff at the community hospital, and they were looking for the first ever medical subspecialist for internal medicine. Back then, GPs in internal medicine delivered babies and did the vents and all that, but they were like, there was something called cardiologist, and they found my dad, did training at University of Kentucky, came here in 1973 when I was 3 years old. So I've been here since I was 3, and I followed my father's footsteps and left when I was 18, came back to Springfield to join my dad in practice in 2002. So that's what led me back. But I had, I wanted to come back anyway.
Yeah.
But the opportunity was a good one here in Springfield.
So you did what most parents want their children to do, and that's actually become doctors. I think that's what my parents wanted for me, and I was like, history, and they're like, that's great, Kevin. We're happy for you, but how are you going to pay the bills, man? So yeah. In
the Southeast, it's either engineering or being a physician, and I was the first son immigrant child, and I did exactly what I was supposed to do. But I love it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you a follow-up question on that then. We're here to talk about downtowns, and residents say they want a vibrant downtown, right? Quote unquote vibrant downtown. What do you think that means in practical terms?
When I think about that, I think, the first thing I think about is the 2 words, foot traffic. I just, pedestrian, walkability, and identity. So I was always kind of drawn towards cities, even when I was in training in New York and Michigan and everywhere else that I went to and finally came back. Loved communities with an identity. Mm-hmm. So, that core concept and curbside and foot traffic and food trucks and, music. And so that's what I think as a vibrant downtown. It can mean many things, amazing culture and other things, but that's my definition.
Yeah. And David, you travel around a fair amount. Ash, I know you do as well, but you're traveling around for work, David, and working with a lot of different communities, a lot of different types of downtowns. For you, what is a vibrant downtown? Is there a one-fits-all answer for that, or what do you think?
Well, I doubt there's a one-fits-all answer, but my take on this is, I think, Ash, you're right on with foot traffic. I also think there's an experience, and I think people in today's world, what people are looking for and what you would think of as a downtown destination, and I think where Springfield's heading with a downtown destination, it's about people being stimulated. And they want to see things that are interesting, like the murals, right? I mean, that's a visual stimulation. I mean, you have some really interesting historic murals as well as newer ones here. People want to be stimulated with, it's what some people would call activation of the space, where you have the events and the festivals and the food trucks. And that's all tied into that macro trend of walkability. But I think what people generally are looking for, and most of us now are urban dwelling species, right? We live in a house in a suburb or in a neighborhood, and what people are looking for as they go into these destination downtowns is that stimulation, to sort of have your senses woken up and have, tastes and sounds and smells and sights and things like that. They're a little different, a little kind of memorable as well. And I do think that what you've got here is the building blocks for that. I mean, you have some beautiful architecture. I mean, you and I, Kevin, have talked about some of the buildings here that are really just remarkable to look at, right? You have some of that infill with the murals going on. You have events like people have often here in the engagement. They've talked about the different events and festivals that are held downtown. I think all of that is part of building that story. I think the sort of next big iteration for the downtown here, and I'd love to get your take on this too, Ash, because you're really involved in it, but I think it's about how do you extend that so it's not just like a one-off type of an event, but it becomes that sense of stimulation sort of all time, that you can go there almost any time, and there are things to excite you and interest you and keep drawing you back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and truly, I mean, it's been referenced in other podcasts, but pickleball courts, right? Just things that you can do, and you can go downtown and you can do it kind of anytime, hopefully during daylight hours, or with good lighting in the evening. But those types of things where there's constant activation and it's not just one particular thing. So I've been in Springfield now since I left for a brief period of time for college, but since 1999. And I'll say when I moved here, downtown was dead. Like there was nothing going on. And Ash, I know you've been here even longer. You've seen these transitions the downtown, the urban core has gone through, not dissimilar to what a lot of towns Springfield size have faced. A lot of them are still kind of stuck in that rut, so to speak. What positive developments have you seen in Springfield that are really giving you hope for the future?
Well, I agree. I came back in 2002, kind of the nadir, maybe before that, but a few things gave me hope. I came back home. Obviously, it was for a professional opportunity and joining the family business and things like that. But a classmate of mine, he was part of something called the Center City Association, and he gave me this white paper on potentially building a downtown hospital, and it was some hospital in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And it caught my interest. I'm like, wow, just I'm a physician and I'm a local, boy, would that be great? It happened in 2006, Westcott House came and, you got this building of things. And one of my classmates was Rod Hatfield. There was a state theater, and it wasn't like it is today, but he had some interesting bohemian programming back then in this place in downtown. I'm like, wow, this is something you see in New York City. So there was always this potential in this place and got me interested. So there's a lot of, for me, the potential was there and I wanted to be a part of it. And what lit my fire was another classmate. I went to Catholic Central, so a lot of my classmates are part of this. Was one of my best friend from high school was Mike Loftus. So the Loftus family was starting this brewery, I think 2017 or what it was. And I'm like, wow, that totally makes sense. It's going to light a fire. And it really did. And that got me interested in starting investing in downtown.
Yeah.
So with them and other things.
So to go back to one thing you said, the hospital downtown, we've talked about it in another podcast about just how important that was. And it didn't just happen, right? This community made it happen. And that's one of the things that we've been trying to focus on in this process is that things don't happen in a community. We make them happen. I mean, some things do happen to you and you want to try to control those. We've had things happen to us as a community, and that's part of why we're here, right? In some ways, a lot of the work we're doing is in reaction to that, to try to control those situations. But when we look at the great things that have happened in this community, they've not been happenstance. They've been strategic, right? They've been people, often investors, that are coming in and saying, listen, this is important. I lived in New York. I lived in Seattle, like Mr. Hatfield. They've been out. They've seen things. They've seen things that work, and they come back and they want to see those happen. Or they're just even traveling for vacation. They see something that really just makes them excited, and they want to see those things happen in their community. They gain momentum, and they ultimately do happen. And I think one of those key moments that probably hasn't been addressed enough in this process as a historian when you look at it is that downtown hospital project, because it gave people this renewed faith that we could find something that's important as a community, focus on it, unify around it, create a large campaign, and succeed. And it was one of the first things that had happened along those lines in a really long time, but it was about concerted planning efforts that happened before that with the RUDAT plan and other work. So I'm really happy to hear you mention that and that path.
And the odds were against us at the time. There was, hospitals on the highways in Troy and Middletown. And so, the precedent was there in amazing for it to happen. That says a lot about our community.
Yeah. And I think it also helps that the locations they were selecting are a long ways away from a lot of people. Like where your practice is at, to get from that practice to that hospital would be a long drive. Yeah. The idea of centrality with this, the idea of having things in the core also just makes practical sense as a community.
Absolutely.
So we were able to really focus on that. So speaking of that, downtown, as you were just saying, has been the focus of your investments in this community. And not entirely. I know some things you're invested in arts and culture that are outside of the downtown. But why is downtown your passion, or why that focus?
Yeah, I'm going to do a cliche. It all started with a girl. A couple of things. I remember my first date ever. I was 16, and she was literally the girl next door where I lived. And I took her to a movie at the State Theater. And I could have gone to the Upper Valley Mall, which is, a theater in the outskirts. But I don't think I was thinking too much at 16. In retrospect, at age 56, I'm thinking, why did I go to State Theater with her? Again, that same thing that David mentioned, I wanted to, it was the atmosphere, the scene. Mm-hmm. And that date and just the vibrancy, it was still a nadir at the time, but there was a bit more going on in 1986 than there was in 2002. And then also my father, amazing, he was an immigrant trying to make, just to make a life in a community here. But boy, did he have the wherewithal and the mindset to invest in a place called the Springfield Inn, which was the precursor of the Courtyard Marriott downtown. Mm-hmm. And he didn't, he just wasn't, not that all, and he was kind of one, not many people, they were just trying to make a life for themselves, but he was really active in the community, which is a little anomalous in that time, just because they have other things going on. But he gave me that sense of giving back to the community that gave a lot to him and our family. So it was the Arts Festival, it was the Springfield Inn. So I kind of continued that tradition.
So I think you're in good company, because I'm pretty sure our current sitting governor, Governor DeWine, also had his first date at the State Theater. I'm pretty sure if it wasn't his first date,
it's all about a girl.
It was different with him, because that woman would later become his wife. So that date worked out for him. But yeah, it's a great space. And we used to have so many theaters, and we're really fortunate to still have two of the great theaters downtown, one that is currently being used and one that is one of those things that keeps getting mentioned as that next great thing. And on that, maybe to take the other side of that, what do you think are our biggest obstacles as a community today for the downtown that we're facing?
For me, the biggest obstacle, not just downtown, and this is something I can speak to pretty well because I lived it, is pessimism and attitude. Mm-hmm. I graduated in 1988, and all my classmates went to Chicago or Columbus, and for good reason. I mean, there was, we're a manufacturing town. We were being attenuated. Our middle class was being, challenged, let's put it that way, and not many other opportunities. And so we've had this for the last 50 years, and it's still there, a lot of negativity. And so the biggest obstacle I see is not just for downtown, it's for our town, it's just been this sense of, self-hatred to some degree, Mm-hmm. And so I think it's changing. And I see that changing, but I understand it, because I can see where people get down on our town. I think for me, being in a first generation, I've had this duplicity, this sense of identity from being an American citizen. I was born here in American, but I also have this other part of my ethnic enclave, and I see something from afar, and I always saw something more amazing about this town that was so accepting to our family and others. This town's history and the bones of it, and it's not nothing.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's changing, but it's been the negativity, pessimism to some degree.
Yeah. David,
yeah. Could I add to that too, Kevin? Because I think Ash, it's fantastic what you said, and but I think to give you a little heart, right? So we've run a community survey here, as you know, recently closed, and we had over 1,500 responses in that. And so we've reached well beyond the usual suspects. So this is we've got a really deep data set. And it was interesting when I was looking at that too, that there is the largest majority of people are excited about the future. Given a scale of people being concerned about the current direction, very excited about what things are happening, looking at questions around, how do you get a level of satisfaction about living and working here, and unsatisfied to very satisfied. There's an emerging larger cohort of people who I think are getting excited about the future. So, and that comes with a lot of work, right? So, there's been people who've been really investing heavily, yourself and others, in the downtown. It's starting to pay off, right? And I think people are starting to see that. In fact, when we asked the question about what excites you most about what's going on in the community, the downtown was the highest rated response, right, on open-ended questions. So I think people are recognizing the potential of the downtown as that central hub in the community that reflects so much of the history and so much of the opportunity for entertainment and so on. So I think that'll only grow as we go forward. And there's projects underway downtown that people don't even really see yet, but they're on the books. They're coming, right? And there's some construction, but there's more coming, right? I think that all becomes very exciting. And I think if you look at the kind of vision for the future, that whole sort of cluster of restaurants that are emerging, these, right now we don't really have downtown residents, but there'll be hundreds of people living downtown
Very
soon.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to have the hospitals right integrated there and so on. So I think the table is being set for a pretty exciting time in the next decade.
So maybe this is something I shouldn't say, but I also would say that those people weren't wrong, right? That were pessimistic 25 years ago, that were down on Springfield. I would have been down on Springfield. I was when I moved here in 1999. This place was not a place you wanted to live. There were great things, right? The things that you say, those Springfield has been a diverse and welcoming city for a long time. It has had its hiccups is maybe too light of a word. It's had its struggles through the years, but it has these things that really make it special, and those were there. But when we've surveyed this community in this process, in the survey and then also in the listening sessions, the focus group sessions, asking people what they love about this community, almost everything that they say has happened in the last 25 years. So then you go back to before that 25-year segment, and you're like, what would have they said, right? And there just wasn't that much. And so I think in a way we've built a community that people should be proud of, or I hope they're going to be proud of. So I hope it's all right to say that it's fine that people are pessimistic, but now it's time to hopefully learn about what's going on in this community, because now is the time to kind of shed that and start to get excited about the future.
Well, and I think that's a really good point, Kevin. And if you look at the data, I mean, this community had decline year on year, decade on decade from
1956.
For how long? For 50 years plus, right? And so that's Rust Belt, Middle America. It's a really tough environment. I mean, you have a whole generation or two generations of people who grow up in a world where the population's declining, businesses are leaving, services are going, jobs are going, right? So that shapes the psychology and the DNA and the spirit of a community. But if you look at the more recent component, I mean, the data we were looking at just the other day is that Springfield has basically stabilized and has recovered a lot of the jobs that it was losing. You've now you're at the bottom of that curve and changing trajectory in terms of population growth, in terms of the downtown revitalization. It takes us a while. If we've been in decades of really tough time, it takes a while for us to believe that something else different is happening.
Yeah. And the transformation has been, in many ways, quite dramatic, right? Because the Pew study came out in 2016 that over the past, 15 years, 20 years, Springfield had lost more median household income than any other city in the nation, right? By that measure, you could say the hardest hit post-industrial city. And then just a handful of years later, we were the third hottest real estate market in America, right? But that didn't happen over those just couple of years. It happened over a decade plus, 2 decades really, of just concerted work, right? The Hospital Downtown Project, the work that happened in RUDAP, the work that happened in Greater Springfield moving forward. And even when you get to 2001, it doesn't things don't just start coming up. They kind of plateaued for a while. They stopped going down, but we'd been so used to controlling decline, as you kind of need to when you see those population losses, that it took a little while for it to turn around. And now that it's turning around, it's really exciting, right? Because for those of us that have been here for a while, we've been ready for it. We've been ready, and to see downtown. I live within walking distance of downtown. We're in downtown right now. Can easily walk here. I'll admit I drove today, but often are walking down into this area. There's just a vibrancy that didn't exist a number of years ago. So Ash, as you look around and you see what's going on in our downtown, what do you think are the most promising opportunities for growth or transformation within the community, but specifically the downtown core?
I think people living downtown. So I got involved with the Wren building as well, independently. I just there was an outfit out of Columbus, Connect Realty, and again they chose to come here and revamp one building and put modulars on the other, and there was an opportunity. I was like, this is wonderful. 72 apartments, people actually living here. And I think that to me excites me the most. The State Theater for me, then subsequent Hi-Hat Social, which I got involved with, and Center Street townhomes, So it's always been for me to focus on here. And I think, other people are seeing it.
Yeah.
And actually putting their money in it.
And Wren Lofts, a project that I've been involved in quite a bit, as you know, that's a building that was actively being demolished. I mean, the big holes in the back of it is because they had a demolition permit, a signed demolition permit, a contractor that was literally demoing the building and taking it down, right? And a group of citizens rose up and said, no, like, we are not going to lose this building on the core block. And then you that dynamic, and that's what it takes. It takes a community really kind of rising up, stepping forward and saying, no, this is not the future we want. And so I feel really optimistic on just that kind of ownership that we've seen. And I think that's one of the keys. And I guess in my final question, this is going to take a lot of public engagement, right? It's going to take ownership. And some of that is literal ownership, right? Like home ownership and things like that. I mean, those are the key things, but owning the process that we're going through. And part of that is trying to make sure in this process that we're including as many people as we possibly can. We're never going to be able to involve every single resident. We're trying our best to include every person who wants to be involved in this process. But what do you think meaningful public engagement looks like as we're moving forward as a community?
I think we're doing it. I mean, it's Future IQ. It's 2051, and that's public engagement. And also, when we had a challenge a year and a half ago on the national scene, a few of us kind of got together and trying to figure out how do we tell our story. And that led to where we are today. I mean, it takes that's public engagement. It's people who care about where they live, and also involving everybody else.
Yeah.
So I think we're here for that.
One of the things I love, and I love that answer, and one of the things I've loved that David has said is that talking is action too. And I think too often we act like if we're just getting together and talking about where we want to go, that's not action. We need action, right? But no, that's ownership, right? When we have these discussions, that's how we create ownership, is getting people involved, making them, but not every idea is going to come to the top and be implemented, but just the idea of putting forward your ideas and throwing them out there, throwing them out to the sounding board. A lot of the great ideas we've had have come out of those talking engagements. So
yeah, if I could add one thing to that, Kevin, and you're right that talking is a key action at the right time, but what we're talking about is really important. Yeah. And I think what typifies the engagement in this project is it's accomplished two things that I think are vital. One is it's wide, it's broad. We've sought and elicited response from a wide range of people, in all different walks of life across the area. But also we've had the opportunity for very deep conversations, because ultimately this is a strategic roadmap for the future. And to accomplish a strategic roadmap, you have to have deep thinking that goes with that, because all communities face unintended consequences of certain choices going forward. And I think what we're doing in this process is really trying to walk our way through and understand appetite for change, direction of change, and being very thoughtful about the focus areas that we're building into this roadmap as we go forward.
Yes, thank you. So Ash, David, thank you so much. I could continue having this conversation all day. I mean, it's encouraging. It really makes me hopeful. So thank you both for your participation. And if you have enjoyed this conversation, please think about getting involved. There's plenty of opportunities moving forward. We're still, I don't want to say at the beginning of this process, because I don't want to do disservice to all of the work that's happened so far, but this is a key moment where we're shaping the future of this community, developing the action steps around these 7 pillars, specifically today downtown and in the corridors in our community. So if you want to be involved in that process, reach out to us through springfield2051.com, like us on social media, look for those meetings, look in the local newspaper, talk to your neighbors. We really want you to be involved in this process. Thank you.
You have been listening to Let's Make History Together podcast. You can visit letsmakehistorytogether.com for more episodes. You may also check out springfield2051.com to learn how you can get involved in the process of shaping our community's future. Special thanks to our guests and to you, our listeners and fellow community members. The music excerpt used for this podcast is by Johnny Lytle, one of Springfield's legendary music stars.